Welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday episode of Arch City Sports. I'm your host, AJ Nance. Today, we have a lot to get into, starting with what direction are the Cardinals going? A lot of moves made this week in a big series versus the Padres. We have kind of slipped out of the wild card race, now 7 games back after dropping games 1 and 2 to the Padres. I'm going to be answering some of your guys' questions that we got on Instagram at the end of the show. Taking a look at what the lineup looked like yesterday with Luke and Baker batting third and Jose Fermin getting some time in the lineup. But before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow and rate the podcast if you're on Spotify or Amazon Music. And, of course, go over on Instagram, TikTok, and X and give us a follow over there for daily St. Louis sports content at Arch City Sports on all platforms. We'd love to see you guys follow us over there. But like I said, a lot of moves being made this week. The major move was Shawn Armstrong, who we received in the Dylan Carlson trade, has been DFA'd and Riley O'Brien recalled. This is the first time Riley O'Brien has been back in the majors since the first series of the season versus the Dodgers. Then he went down. I believe it was an elbow issue he was dealing with. The biggest storyline here, though, is Shawn Armstrong was pitching pretty well for us. And there's a question from one of you guys that we're going to touch on at the end of the show about Shawn Armstrong, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it right now. I'll get more into it later. But Shawn Armstrong had an ERA under 3 in his 12 appearances with us. Riley O'Brien, I'm really high on him. He has got electric stuff. He was pitching very well in Memphis. Had high hopes coming into the season. Him and Keenan Middleton were two guys that we got in the offseason that I thought really could contribute to the squad. And I think Riley O'Brien has a role for us the rest of this year and next year for sure. But DFA'ing Shawn Armstrong is just not only not a good look, it's just not very wise. I mean, he's got an ERA under 3 with us, but also he's the only guy you got back in the Dylan Carlson trade. It's really hard to let go of that because you pretty much are now saying you just sent Dylan Carlson for nothing to the Tampa Bay Rays. And since he's been over there, he has an OPS over 750, 3 homers has been producing. And so it's just not a good look. Another move. I mean, Dylan Carlson still got a potential. Yes, you probably had to move him with how the direction he was going with our organization, but you have to get something else then if you are going to get rid of Shawn Armstrong. You get him to kind of make a run for the wild card race. At the time, it was for the division. We were only 5 or 6 games back. He's about 33, 34 years old. Again, he was pitching well. Some contender is going to pick him up, and he's going to play a role in their bullpen. So tough to see Shawn Armstrong go. If he somehow passes through waivers, we could potentially get him back, but I don't see that happening. Riley O'Brien, though, did pitch last night. We're going to get into that in just a second. But in game 1, the Cardinals dropped the game to the Padres 7-4 in a game where Kyle Gibson went 4 1/3, giving up 5 hits, 7 runs. He walked 4. And I just had a talk with somebody the other day about the offseason and do we bring Kyle Gibson back? He's been a pleasant surprise. These last few starts of his throughout this season now, he's been that ERA has been climbing up a little bit. He's now got a 4.54 ERA, and in the next few weeks, and especially during the offseason, I'll dive into what I think we should do with our roster. But Kyle Gibson, a little spoiler, I do not think we should bring him back for 2025. Again, not diving too deep into it today because that's a lot of offseason talk to come in the next few weeks and months. But we lose this one 7-4. In game 2 last night, we lose this one 7-5. Miles Michaelis 5 2/3, 4 runs. He gave up all 4 runs in the second inning, and that's a trend that I see a lot with our starting pitchers recently. Sonny Gray is a victim of it. Miles Michaelis was a victim of it last night. We've seen it with Lance Lynn, and we've seen it with Kyle Gibson. You give up a lot of runs in one inning. You get blown up, lit up in one inning. 4 or 5 runs, possibly 6 runs at times. Lance Lynn gave up about 8 or 9 in Washington earlier this year in that second inning. So after that inning, whatever inning it is throughout the game, it seems like guys, our starters really seem to settle down and get a groove. Sonny Gray is a huge victim of it, though. He'll go 5 innings of one-hit ball, give up a 3-run homer and a solo shot in the 6th, and then pitch a really good 7th inning. It's just we have to eliminate that one inning from getting away from us, and that's what we saw with Michaelis last night. He gave up 2, Machado homered, and then he gave up another run, and then you were like, just eke out of this inning one way or another, just get out of this inning. We're giving up 2 runs, and he gave up 2 more. We did end up grabbing the lead though, and then John King gave up a run, and then Riley O'Brien gave up 1 later in this one. But John King went 1 inning, giving up 3 hits, 2 runs, 27 pitches, and you could tell he's the one that got us out of the 6th inning jam that Michaelis, or not jam, he just got us out of the 6th inning. Michaelis started the 6th, got the first 2 guys out, and then King came in to face the lefty. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Profar at that time, but he came in to get the lefty. He got out of it perfectly, but then he starts the 7th, had a couple hard hit balls against him, and I think, in my opinion, Ollie left him in too long. He was at 27 pitches, getting hit pretty hard. After him, Andrew Kittredge comes in, giving us an inning and a third, no hits, no runs. He was very good last night. His slider was super sharp. And then Riley O'Brien came in to pitch the top of the 9th. He went 1 inning, 1 hit, 1 run. That 1 run being a wild pitch that, with a guy on third base and 2 outs and a 1-run ball game, you have to block that ball, Ivan Herrera. He didn't get down fast enough. It was a slider down and in on the lefty, and it got by him, and that run scored. That just those little things cannot happen. I mean, it just cannot happen. So we lose this one 7-5. We had a chance in the 9th inning with Nolan Arenado at the plate. With 2 outs, he drilled 2 down the line. Again, Nolan Arenado did not start in this one. Jose Fermin got the start. Arenado comes in, drilled 2 foul balls down the left field line that were home run distance, and then he drills 1 to third base off the bag to slow down the ball, and Manny Machado makes a very nice play to throw him out. To start that inning, Brendan Donovan drilled 1 to second base. Bogarts was almost blown backwards there, stopped it in front of him, caught it, threw out Donovan. After that, Ivan Herrera hit 1 to first base where it was a bang-bang play. Luis Arraez sprinting to first base to tag the base to get him out. That 9th inning kind of summed up these last few weeks of Cardinals baseball. Just very frustrating. Not getting the results last night. A lot of hard hit balls, but you score 5 runs. You gotta have Michaelis not. I mean, there's several things. You gotta have Michaelis not give up 4 in that 1 inning. You have to have John King. In my opinion, it is John's fault, but Ollie's got to pull him faster than that. And then Ivan Herrera's got to stop that ball behind home plate in the 9th inning. Those were the game changers in this one. I don't really blame the lineup for this one, especially with the lineup that we were throwing out there. Mason Wynn was 2 for 4. Lars Nootbaar 1 for 4 with an RBI single. Paul Goldschmidt looked great last night, and that was the big thing is Arenado drilled those 2 down the line, and we just needed one guy to get on base in the 9th inning there, whether it be Donovan batting the 4-hole, Ivan Herrera in the 6-hole, or the 5-hole rather, and then Arenado who pinch hit. We just needed one guy on base to see Paul Goldschmidt. And Paul Goldschmidt last night, 3 for 3 with a homer, his 20th homer of the season, 2 RBIs, and a walk. He was on base all 4 times. So a really good night for Paul Goldschmidt. But sad to see that we could not have him come up to the plate with a chance to tie it late in that one last night. But I mentioned the lineup. What is that lineup last night? And in a stretch here where, yes, I personally believe we are probably done. Now 7 games back. The Braves continue to win. The Giants won these last couple games. The Mets continue to play well. It's going to need a miracle 2011 type season stretch here in September to get into the playoffs, and that's just getting into the playoffs, right? But there's still a chance. And so throwing this lineup out there last night just shows me it looked like a late September, you're out of the race type of lineup. I mean, you had Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson at the top as always, but your 3, 4, 5 hitters are Luken Baker, who got the time at first base, or I think he was DHing last night. You had Luken Baker, and then you had Brendan Donovan, the 4-hole. We've discussed that on here, especially last episode. And then you have Ivan Herrera batting 5th, and I love what Ivan's done, especially offensively this year when he's gotten his chances. But in the 5-hole, and then in the you have Jose Fermin at third base. I mean, there's just several things here. First of all, Luken Baker batting 3rd in the lineup. Now, I'm okay at this point in the season if you want to get Luken Baker some playing time. That's one thing. Batting in the 3-hole when he hasn't been doing a whole lot of production up here. He had the home run his first at bat back up here. A lot of you guys, especially in our comments on our videos on Instagram and TikTok, of course, go follow over there if you haven't already. But a lot of you guys are really high on Luken Baker as the future first baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I personally am not on that train with you guys. I don't believe he's the answer at first base. I don't know if that answer at first base for next year and moving forward is outside of the organization right now or if it's within the organization. I think Wilson Contreras could play there, and you could run Ivan Herrera and Pages behind the plate. You could put potentially Alec Burleson there. Now, he's not great defensively, but maybe that's something he could develop over time. He's still only 25 years old. And then there's been talks, of course, of Jordan Walker playing some first base. I don't like that as much either because he's too good of an athlete to just throw over there. But with Luken Baker, we have to remember, yes, we look down in the minors and he's got another 30 home run season. I think it was 32 home runs. It led all of minor league baseball, which is great. But he's also batting .231 down there. And so if he's batting .231 in AAA, it's hard to see a world where he's going to bat over .231 at the major league level when guys are obviously more polished, more experienced, and just flat out better pitchers. It's going to be really hard to see him bat over .231. Now, in his career, if you want to look back a little bit, in his 6 minor league seasons, he's a career .258 hitter. In my opinion, that's a little skewed by his amazing 2023 season last year, where he had over, I think it was 36 homers. He batted over .330. Now, that was not the Luken Baker that we've seen several times before last year in the minors. Now, you take away that 2023 season, he's a career .248 hitter in the minors. And so what I'm seeing is, if you're basing, he is 27 years old. If you're going to base what he's done this year in AAA to what, his future looks like at the major league level, we're looking at a right-handed Nolan Gorman is what I'm looking at. I mean, he's, again, batting .231 with 32 homers. He's a big guy. He's going to have homers. He's going to hit homers no matter where he's at. But is he going to be consistently in the lineup? He's not great defensively. He doesn't have a lot of range. Obviously, first base, you don't have to be phenomenal. A phenomenal athlete to play that position, but he's a big guy. He just his body build and his approach at the plate screams future DH, and I just think we have too many options of those in our organization. Again, first base wise, I think you could go a couple different routes, and I just don't think Luken Baker is the route. Now, throughout the end of the season, no, he can prove me wrong for sure, and that's why I'm personally okay. With having him in the lineup consistently at the DH spot or filling in for Goldie at first base, giving him some time off the rest of the season, I am completely okay with that. But batting third in the lineup, if you guys are committed, if we are committed to not competing the rest of the season, that is okay to have him in the 3-hole. But if we're going to commit to that, then Jordan Walker needs to be up here. Victor Scott obviously is playing every day, and Nolan Gorman, just call him back up. Just play these guys every single day. If you're going to commit to playing Luken Baker at first base or DH and batting him in the 3-hole, then we have to commit to the other guys. Give Cesar Prieto a chance. Give Matt Koperniak a chance. Give all these AAA guys that have produced this year a chance at the major league level. Quinn Matthews is another name in AA, and that's one of the questions I'm going to answer in just a second here. He's another guy that give him a chance up here. I mean, the other guy here is Jose Fermin. He was at third base last night, and Jose continues to get the call up as like that other utility infielder that you just throw around the field, and he's a right-handed bat. That's why Cesar Prieto's not getting a chance. That's why, Thomas Saggese I would probably rather have over Jose Fermin. Now, Jose has been great at AAA. That's nothing taken away from him, but at the major league level, he's not done a whole lot. He had a single last night and then grounded into a double play 2 at-bats later. I'd rather have a guy that we potentially have down the line for the future in a Thomas Saggese, or even, I don't care if he's a lefty, Cesar Prieto. I'd rather have these guys get a chance at the major league level than Jose Fermin, who's just going to be a career utility guy that probably won't be in our organization much longer. And then, I mentioned it, we've talked about it last episode, we've talked about it several weeks now, Brendan Donovan in the 4-hole, and I love Brendan Donovan. He's one of my probably top 3 or 4 favorite players on the team. He should not be our cleanup hitter. You should switch him with Alec Burleson. But again, if you're committed to just kind of tanking the season, that's fine, I guess. I don't understand kind of the direction we're going. Because it seems like we're trying to compete with some of the moves we're making, but then Brendan Donovan's in the 4-hole. The season's starting to look like what it did pretty much the entirety of last season. I would just continue to try to compete, but I would give all these young guys a playing time. If you want to continue to play Brendan Donovan, which you should, obviously, put him in the 2-hole, put Mason Wynn, Brendan Donovan, and then mix it up. You could put Luka Baker if you want to commit to just giving young guys a chance. You could put Doran Walker there, and then put Alec Burleson, or put Burleson in the 3-hole, and then move Arenado up to the 4-hole again, or Lars Nootbaar in the 4-hole. I just don't think Brendan Donovan should be our cleanup hitter at all, and he's been there for the last month and a half, pretty much. But yeah, like I said, it looks like a lineup that's given up. So why not give Jordan Walker a chance every single day up here? Why not give Nolan Gorman a chance every single day up here? And I think that's definitely a possibility with a potential loss with Andre Palante on the mound tonight, and then you have Sonny Gray tomorrow. Let's say, for example, we get swept by the Padres, and then we have to go to the Bronx to play the red-hot New York Yankees, where Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are both having MVP-type seasons. Aaron Judge, one of the best seasons of all time. We could very easily fall out of this race and be 10 games back of the wild card, and at that point, you got to call up all these young guys and give them a chance to play every single day for the month of September. Now, ideally, I shouldn't say ideally. I would love to see us start winning ball games and get back in the race, and we win the next 3 games. The Braves lose their next 3, and then all of a sudden we're 4 games back out of the wild card. I would absolutely love that. But we have to be realistic with our situation and with our roster construction right now and how the lineup's been thrown out there, and obviously the fan base is not loving it. Numbers are at an all-time low. 27,000 fans at the stadium last night, Busch Stadium 3 low for attendance. We just have to be realistic about our situation right now. I mentioned Shawn Armstrong at the very beginning of the show being DFA'd. That means both relievers that we got for Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson, Nick Robertson and Shawn Armstrong, have both been DFA'd this year. So we have pretty much thrown Tyler O'Neill to the Boston Red Sox, where he's having a pretty solid season. I would say batting .261 with 20 homers and an OPS over .830. And then Dylan Carlson pretty much just given to the Rays because we DFA'd Shawn Armstrong. And he's, like I said at the beginning of the show, 3 homers over there, an OPS over 750. We've talked several times as a whole fan base about the moves Mozeliak and DeWitt have been making these last couple of years, whether there's a whole list of them. Zach Gallen, Adolis Garcia, Sandy Alcantara, Marcell Ozuna's having an MVP-type season. Now, obviously, I don't think you could have kept him because he wasn't producing at a super high level here, but there's so many moves where guys have left here and obviously been successful. And these 2 where you don't get anything in return is a really tough blow. And Tyler O'Neill has dealt with injuries his whole career, and he's dealing with injuries again this year. And Dylan Carlson, I feel like you had to move him because he just was kind of in a log jam here in the organization, and he wasn't producing at a high level at all. I understand moving him. I was on board with moving him. But you have to either keep Shawn Armstrong, or you either have to get somebody else in that deal. Remember, it was a last-second deal right before the deadline time ran out, and we just got stuck with Shawn Armstrong. And I don't want to say just stuck with him because he produced at a high level here. Like I said, an ERA under 3 in his 12 appearances as a Cardinal, and then we DFA him to give a spot to Riley O'Brien. And again, really high on Riley O'Brien, but I think there's a world where you can keep both of them. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Shawn Armstrong finds his way back as a Cardinal. I don't see it happening. Just a lot of question marks as a fan base that we have for the DeWitt family, for Mozeliak, for Ollie. A lot of questions right now. But let's finish up the show discussing your questions, your hot takes. I made a question post on Instagram on the story yesterday, on our story about you guys could send over your questions, your hot takes. So we have 4. We had several more, but we're just going to lock in on 4 right now. Starting with Jared, and I'm going to say your guys' names. Hopefully I don't mess it up here. Jared Bcraft said the Cardinals will field the youngest roster in the league next year, and it won't be pretty. Now, I think I would be okay with that personally. Throw Jordan Walker out there every day. Throw Nolan Gorman out there every day. See what the future looks like for these guys. Let them develop at the major league level. But I don't think that will happen. And I am definitely okay with Nolan Arenado returning. Paul Goldschmidt, unless he goes on a tear this month of September, he's still batting under 230. He should not be a Cardinal next year if we're going to look towards the future. I talked about earlier in this episode what we do at first base for the future, whether it be Contreras or Burleson or Walker, whatever the case may be, or maybe it's a guy outside the organization. But Paul Goldschmidt will be 38 years old, I believe, next September. So next year will be his age 38 season. Obviously a huge drop-off this year. But with all that being said, I do think the Cardinals bring him back. I think they bring him back on like a 2-year deal, and he finishes his career as a Cardinal. So I agree with we should probably field one of the youngest rosters out there. Give Tink Hence a shot. Give Quinn Matthews a shot. Palante's still young. I assume you're saying let go of Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, but I just don't think we'll do that. Maybe Liberatore gets a chance as a starter the whole year, and we just kind of I don't want to say tank the season, but let all these young guys see what we have. Let these young guys perform next year and see what we have for the future. But I don't think we do that. I think Mozeliak in his last year of his deal is going to ride out his contract and throw out Paul Goldschmidt and do everything that he's been doing the last few years. Charlie Moon from Instagram said, do the Cardinals keep Victor Scott in the lineup when Michael Ciani gets back? Michael Ciani just started his rehab assignment in AA Springfield. He was 0 for 3 last night. Obviously, an awful time for Michael Ciani to get hurt because he was producing at a very high level. One of the best defenders in all of baseball this year, but also was batting, I believe it was almost at 260, his average. Not a lot of power, but he was starting to make contact and not be an absolute hole at the bottom of our lineup. But with that being said, Victor Scott's really shown a lot, especially these last few weeks. Now, you can't look at Victor's season stats because of that awful start that he had to begin the season where he was batting under 100 at one point. So he's only up to like 150 right now. But the defensive drop-off is not huge between Michael Ciani and Victor Scott. Now, I think some of the plays that Victor tries to make that doesn't, one example is last night on the single to center field late in this one. I believe it was the 9th inning where he probably should have just kept it in front of him. He dove and it actually bounced off his glove and rolled behind him, and the guy ended up getting a double out of it. Those are the type of plays where Michael Ciani probably not only makes that catch, but even if he doesn't think he gets there, he's older and he understands that ball just needs to fall in front of him and it can't get behind him. Those are the type of things. But overall, when it comes to speed and athleticism and tracking down balls, Victor Scott had a ridiculous catch against the wall last night that Jackson Merrill hit. I believe, and it goes with the entire episode that we've been discussing here, that if we're going to commit to this youth movement for the rest of this season, that we're out of it, we're 7 games back in the wild card, then let Victor Scott play every single day. Now, I think going into the offseason, again, all things that we're going to discuss these next few weeks and throughout the offseason, but I think Michael Ciani and Victor Scott, I think they both make the roster next year, but I think throughout the entire offseason and spring training, you let these two guys compete for that starting center fielder spot. Victor Scott obviously is the future, but Michael Ciani has produced, man, and I don't like the idea of just not getting him playing time. Now, maybe he's the 5th outfielder that you bring in for a defensive replacement late in games for somebody, but I think there's more in Michael Ciani than just a extra outfielder to have for defensive replacement. But with your question, I would play Victor Scott and get him the playing time, especially if we're pretty much out of the race at this point. Eli Horner said, I think Quinn Matthews should be called up by the end of the season. I'm with you. Quinn Matthews, the talent level between AA, AAA, and the majors, we've seen guys jump from AA and make it to the majors immediately. Skip past AAA. I think Quinn Matthews is one of those guys that can do that. Now, Tink Hence, I think, needs to go to AAA this year and produce there and develop there some more, and maybe even start next year in AAA. But Quinn Matthews is so developed as a pitcher. He has 4 great pitches that he has complete control of. His ERA is now 2.42 on the season in Double-A. He's getting better and better. His last time out, I made a video about it, 7 innings, or I believe it was 7 1/3, 12, or maybe 7 2/3. 7 2/3, I believe it was, 12 strikeouts, 2 hits, 1 run. He's getting better and better, and I saw him in person a couple weeks ago. He's got electric stuff. A curveball that he could sit around 74, 75 miles per hour, and then he throws a 97 mile per hour fastball. It's very hard to time him up, and he's got a sneaky delivery from the left side. That's kind of got to be hard for guys to pick him up at the plate. So I'm fully on board with that. Give him a couple starts in September for us, especially if we're out of the race. I like that, Eli. And last but not least, Tire Brokering said, I understand you may not like DFA'ing Shawn Armstrong, but he has been bad in close games. Now, even if that is the case, if Shawn Armstrong is bad in close games, I mentioned it earlier in the episode, I don't like giving up on – you give Dylan Carlson up, so now we got nothing in return. You either got to ride it out with Shawn Armstrong, so at least you got something in return, or obviously if you could turn back time and go back to it, you got to get more than just Shawn Armstrong. If you just planned on a month from the trade deadline, releasing him. And with that being said, like I said, 12 appearances in ERA under 3 as a Cardinal. And in close games, are we really competing for something right now? We're 7 games back now in the wild card race. I don't know. I appreciate all your guys' questions. Jared, Charlie, Eli, Tyler. I'm sorry to the others that I could not get to. We're going to start doing that just about every episode, so I'll make sure to send that out. Maybe just the Monday episodes. I don't know. I don't know yet, but what direction are the Cardinals going the rest of the season, guys? Let us know in the comments below on YouTube, of course. Like and subscribe over there. Follow and rate if you are on Spotify or Apple or Amazon Music. I'm still trying to get on Apple Podcasts. Make sure to go follow on X, Instagram, TikTok at Arch City Sports, and I will see you guys Friday, hopefully discussing a Cardinals win, a Cardinals, split series against the Padres with Palante and Sonny Gray on the mound, or potentially scrapping up the entire season. We'll see how these next 2 games play out. But everybody have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys on Friday.